I am the villain's mother who died early. The villain's father was cold, his mother died early, making him lonely, his personality distorted, thus developing a crazy obsession with the female protagonist who once healed him. He used all kinds of coercive means and finally received a tragic end. The system gave me the task of salvation, so I reincarnated. Looking at my biological son, who was still alive and healthy, wearing clothes, dyeing his hair in a rebellious and colourful way, like a playboy standing in a small alley, I waved the vegetable knife in my hand and laughed coldly. Salvation. This is called a mother teaching her son. Of course, when the system gave me reincarnation, Fusi Ann was leading people to block a skinny boy in a small alley wearing a black leather jacket. His hair dyed dark purple. He leaned against the wall, lowered his head, and played with the knife in his hand, his voice cold. Do you want to tell the truth or cripple one arm? Choose for yourself. A 360-degree bad boy with no blind spots. The boy opposite was surrounded by his juniors, trembling with fear. But in the next second, when the bad boy tried to raise his foot to step on the trash can lid to increase his momentum, he misjudged the height of the trash can and got stuck in a dangerous spot, his face completely distorted. I stood watching from afar, sighed, and finally ignored the system's efforts to stop me. I went to the supermarket next door to buy a vegetable knife. I should have died. After giving birth to Fusi, and my health got worse and worse, but the hospital couldn't find the cause. I finally passed away when Fusi Ann was 3 years old. But now I was reborn as a 16-year-old girl. The system said my death was inevitable because to match the villain's setting, the mother died early and the father did not care, leading to a lonely and extreme personality. That's why Fusi Ann, who longed for love, immediately clung to it when the female lead treated him a little kindly, but the dying person got the last straw. But I had to reincarnate because Fusi Ann would turn too dark in the future, even killing the male and female leads. Save him and prevent all the bad things from happening in the future. That was the condition the system gave me for being reborn but safe. Yeah. I lowered my head to look at the newly bought vegetable knife. The shiny blade reflected a young but familiar face. I laughed coldly. This is called a mother teaching her child. Naturally, Fusi Ann thought that no one saw his bullshit, so after holding the awkward position for a while, he seemed to be angry and used the action of kicking someone to pull his leg down. Les, talk nonsense to me. If you don't tell the truth, then today your hands are gone. His tone seemed fierce if you ignore the fact that his hand was reaching behind his butt to rub the place that was pinched. He still had some momentum. I carried a knife and walked over and saw this scene. The system thought I was so angry that I wanted to clean up the house, and on the way I tried to persuade him, but I just stood behind Fusi Ann, smiling and patting his shoulder. Go, toys can't cut off a person's leg. Do you want to change to a more suitable tool, for example, the later cleaver? The cold blade stuck to Fusi Ann's cheek. The bad boy with the purple head immediately stiffened, slowly released his hand that was rubbing his butt, then shouted in embarrassment and anger, Dick! The habit of idiots is to only look ahead and not behind, so at first Fusi Ann only gently rubbed his butt to relieve the pain, but gradually he felt a little good, and even patted his butt a few times in self-pleasure. I saw it all. I sighed, thinking to myself, with this kind of crazy, mad, dog-like behaviour, how could Fusi Ann turn so dark that he killed both the male and female leads? Could it be that he killed them by making them laugh to death? The system, please respect the innocent villains in this world who have not turned dark yet. I let out a low growl, then lowered my head to look at Fusi Ann's torn pants revealing the inside, and couldn't help but click my tongue. What a child it turned out to be. Pink underwear. The system didn't dare to say anything more. Obviously, my appearance had disrupted Fusi Ann's plan. Amidst the panicked cries of his juniors, who thought their big brother was about to be murdered, he calmly turned his head back, trying to cover up his embarrassment with an arrogant look looking down from above. Which little girl is that? Didn't you see that Grandpa Fo took this seat first? I almost burst out laughing and was about to remind her that her pants were torn when an angry female voice rang out. Fusi Ann, are you bullying your classmates again? This moment happened to be the first time Fusi On met the female lead. In the original work, this part only had one short sentence. Su Xiaoxiao stopped Fusi An's bullying and successfully made him pay attention to her. But in reality, Fusi An endured much more. The girl wearing glasses rushed over and immediately criticized Fusi An. Fusi An rolled his eyes and finally interrupted directly. Zhang Shui, do you think that being the class monitor means you can control me? My father doesn't even dare to control me. Who are you to dare to lecture me? Zhang Shui's face darkened. I also frowned and was about to open my mouth when I realized something was wrong and turned around and kicked a guy who was sneaking up on me from behind. He screamed miserably. Oh my God, this little girl is so fierce. Fusi An was startled and panicked, then immediately understood. Damn, you still haven't learned your lesson. He got mad, immediately rolled up his sleeves and swung his fist hard at that guy's face. If I don't beat you to death today, I won't have the surname Fu. The punching movements were neat and decisive, but the pink cloth on his butt became more and more visible. The surroundings immediately fell silent. Only Zhang Shui, who had lost face in front of the crowd, was still screaming in anger. Fusi An, I'll go tell the teacher, no wonder the Fu family doesn't need someone like you. Fusi An's supposedly majestic figure suddenly stopped. His face darkened, his eyes fiercely looking at Zhang Shui. Say it again. Did I say it wrong? Zhang Shui raised her chin, her tone full of provocation. Wait until Uncle Fu marries Teacher Chow. Let's see how long you can be so arrogant. Fusi An's hand tightened. It glared at Zhang Shui, unconsciously taking a step forward. Then it would probably be able to stay arrogant for a long time after all the eyes of the Fu family weren't blind for the first time. I tiptoed and patted its head to coax it. Be good, stand behind your mother. Fusi An suddenly lost interest and turned to look at me. You are all of the same blood. Zhang Xuedao rolled her eyes at me, her voice full of hatred. It was just a bunch of rich kids who relied on their money to bully the weak, all the scum of society. Then let's see what the weak person in her mouth did. I was too lazy to argue. I bent down to take a phone from the pocket of the beaten guy. The photo album had a password. Sue threatened the kitchen staff, forcing him to reveal the password, scrolled through a few photos, then handed over the phone. Zhang Shui turned her face away without looking. On the contrary, Su Xiaoxiao took it, and after a moment her expression changed. Bastard, she cursed indignantly, but not at Fusi An, but at the guy cowering on the ground. The photo album was full of private photos of female students. With Su Xiaoxiao as a witness, Zhang Shui quickly realized that she had misunderstood, but she did not apologize, still stubborn. He was also wrong, but you hitting someone was even more wrong. Besides, those photos did not show his face. Who knows who it was? Maybe he was just parking the car alone. You hit someone, you have to apologize to this friend first. Even Su Xiaoxiao quietly stepped away from her a bit. Fusi An commented, what a fool, my long-suppressed anger erupted. The system said that in order to fit the villain plot, everyone except the female lead had to hate Fusi An, even though it was unreasonable. I laughed coldly. If you think his behavior is not blameworthy, then I will take a few private photos of you. Anyway, I cannot see his face. I only keep it for my own enjoyment. What are you planning to do? Seeing me step forward, Zhang Shui shouted. She warned me if you do that, it's illegal. I'll call the police. I ignored her and continued to act until Zhang Xie was so scared that she cried. I coldly said, since you know that taking secret photos is illegal, what right do you have to assert that Fusi Ansai is a thug? Thug, I laughed. A thug stops bad guys and protects little girls. She should have known before that the bastard took secret photos of her. This kid was just threatening with his mouth at most. She saw him as a thug, but to those girls who were secretly photographed, he was a hero. Perhaps Fusi An was rarely called a hero. He was stunned for a moment, then raised his head proudly. Zhang Xue was so angry that she cried and ran away. Su Xiaoqiao looked at her back and didn't chase after her. Instead, she seriously apologized to Fu Xian. "Sorry, I misunderstood you before." That action made me feel more sympathetic towards the female lead. Turning back, I saw Fo Tuan still smiling foolishly. I couldn't hold it in any longer and raised my hand to hit that cute round head. "Don't know how to open your mouth to explain Fu Si," and held his head and screamed. "Wait!" He suddenly realized something was wrong and asked doubtfully, "Who are you?" I raised the kitchen knife, smiling brightly, each word clear. "This is your mother." Fu Xian thought I was provoking him. Even though I could clearly tell him the location of the birthmarks on Fu Xian's body, he still blushed and tried to stop me refusing to believe me. So I told him to call Fu Jing, but no matter how I called, no one answered. I watched the smile on the corner of Fu Xian's lips gradually fade away, and after a moment of silence, I asked, "Always like this?" "What, Fu Jing didn't answer your phone?" Fu Xian was stunned, but quickly turned his face away, kicked the can of water under his feet indifferently, and sneered. "I'm not dead, he doesn't need to care, and you're really good. You can even find out my story so clearly." Before he could finish, he suddenly choked. Fu Xian stared at the phone in shock, then let out a curse. I reflexively raised my hand. I couldn't say anything bad. It was rare that he didn't get angry. He just clenched the phone tightly, his eyes red. I glanced at a photo. In the photo, Fu Jing was supporting a beautiful young woman. She was also shyly leaning on him. Perhaps it was because of the angle of the photo that the two of them looked unusually intimate. "Hey, Miss Fu Xian," called me, her face darkening. She laughed coldly. "You said you were my mother, right? Then I'll take you to catch the adulterer." His tone carried a hint of murderous intent that was hard to detect. I silently looked at Fo Tuan and suddenly asked, "Are you angry? Why?" According to the information provided by the system, the relationship between Fu Xian and Fu Jing was not good. Fu Xian also declared that he would not take over the Fu family in the future and would sever his father-son relationship with Fu Jing after he grew up. Then Fu Jing found another woman. What was he angry about? Fu Xian pursed his lips and did not say anything, but the red rims of his eyes became more obvious. Finally, a junior beside him gently reminded him. Today was the day to mourn his big brother's mother. This time it was my turn to be stunned. I really did not know for a moment what Fu Xian's attitude towards his deceased biological mother was. Fu Xian went to school to catch him cheating. The woman in the photo was his homeroom teacher, also the Miss Chao that Zhang Xue had mentioned. Chao An ran. The door to the teacher's room was kicked open. Fu Xian put his hands in his pockets, his tone lazy. I've disturbed the two of you who are having an affair without a matchmaker. I'm really sorry. But old man, you want to catch... Why didn't you tell me earlier about the second spring with Miss Chao? Today is my mother's death anniversary. I also plan to visit her and introduce this adopted sister to her. The tone was provocative, with a hint of anger that was hard to detect. I secretly thought that just based on Fu Xian's mouth, if Fu Jing didn't beat her to death, it would be considered that they had some father-daughter affection. Classmate Fu Chao Anran spoke up, but I caught a glimpse of irritation on her face. She helplessly said, "Don't misunderstand, I and Father Fu were just discussing your business." "Are you discussing my business or your future marriage?" Fu Xian's voice was so cold that it didn't carry any emotion. Fu Xian felt like someone was choking him and suddenly shut his mouth. The man turned his back to us, slowly turned around and calmly looked at Fu Xian. "Apologize." Fu Xian pursed her lips, didn't say anything, and just stared at Fu Jing with red eyes. Obviously father and son, but at first glance they looked like sworn enemies. "It's okay." Chao Anran quickly spoke up to ease the atmosphere and even smiled at Fu Jing. Xuan just misunderstood and she apologized. Fu Jing walked in front of Fu Xian, lowered his eyes and spoke calmly. The Fu family didn't have rude children. I clearly felt Fu Xian's body stiffen for a moment, and the hand that was hanging by his side also tightened. I thought to myself, this damn brat, he said he didn't need Fu Jing to take care of him, but in fact he really cared about what he said. I sighed. It must have been inherited from the Wen family. But Brother Fu, isn't this habit of being around outsiders of yours too much? Fu Jing was stunned, as if frozen for a moment. That sentence also made Fu Xian suddenly remember that I was beside him. He turned around, glared at me, pulled me back and cursed under his breath. If you provoke him now, even I can't save you. Fo Tu An, who is this girl? Only then did Fo Can notice me, who was being shielded by Fo Tu An behind me. The man who was always cold and arrogant rarely showed any signs of losing control. He tightly held Fu Xian's arm, staring at me without blinking, his voice trembling slightly. Who is she? Fu Xian was stunned. She was really sorry I had tainted the noble bloodline of the Fu family. Feeling so guilty, she jumped up from the coffin, wanting to come here directly to apologize to Mr. Fu. I raised my head to look at Fu Jing, smiled provocatively, then turned to pat Fu Xian's head. People often say that if you have a stepmother, you will have a stepfather. Come on, son, apologize to your stepfather. Fu Xian is really good at making people angry to death, but he is still not as good as me. He still has a lot to learn. Fu Xian looked at Fu Jing and then turned to look at me, finally saying, "Caught in the act." Fu Jing and I are in a commercial marriage. I thought it was an alliance between two strong parties, but later I found out that it was the last time my parents expected me to. Fu Jing is a man of his word. After my parents fell ill and passed away, he really kept his promise, even though it had nothing to do with love. But because of that, I believe Fu Jing will take good care of my son. At least it shouldn't have happened like this. I heard you're going to marry that teacher. Chow, congratulations. The story of coming back from the dead was already too thrilling. So after Fu Jing reacted in time, he tried to stay calm and took Fu Xian and me away. The shield in the car was raised. I tilted my head to look at Fu Jing. This man had long since recovered his usual cold demeanor, as if the uncontrolled action just now was just an illusion. Me. His eyelashes trembled slightly, his voice rarely carrying a hint of embarrassment. Don't believe what that kid says. He didn't. He paused for a moment, wanting to say something, but seemed too embarrassed to say anything. This man had a very handsome face, and Namthang seemed to especially favor him. I looked at his almost unchanged face and smiled slightly. Actually, it's fine if you want to marry someone else. Except for me, you've never thought about marrying anyone else. The two sentences rang out at the same time. Both of us were stunned by each other's words. I reacted, first smiling. You've already fulfilled your promise with my parents, so there's no need to try for anything else. Moreover, you are young, busy with work. It is good to have someone at home to help. Fu Jing's face became colder and colder with each word I said, and finally he couldn't help but interrupt. You came back just to tell me these words. His voice was urgent and carried a hint of resentment, so I retracted the smile on my face. My eyes fell on the shield, just like that I could see through, to see Fu Xian sitting in front. Of course not, I replied softly, pausing for a moment. Fu Jing, you have caused my son to suffer. The first time that child opened his mouth, he called me mother, so obedient. That child, when I was lying on the hospital bed, let me pinch his face and said that he would suffer with his mother. That child, before I died, beckoned me to meet again. After his mother passed away, he suffered all kinds of grievances, but had no one to confide in. My voice was cold and full of anger. You promised to take good care of him. I knew Fu Jing was a cold person, even though he and I had been married for 4 years. We could only warm up that block of ice a little, but I thought that at least because the child was of the same bloodline, he would change a little. It was then that I slowly recalled what the system had said about Fu Xian's original ending. No one had saved him. In the end, he died alone because of waiting too long, the nameless anger boiling in his chest, wanting to vent it. Not only because of the man in front of him. Fujing looked at me in shock as if he wanted to explain something, but only opened his mouth without saying a word. In the end, he almost awkwardly turned his head away. "Sorry," Fujing said softly, "no more excuses." So anger turned into helplessness. I reminded him the person he should apologize to was not me. Fujing was silent. Fuxian still couldn't believe that his biological mother had come back to life and had even turned into a 16-year-old girl looking even younger than him. At first, he was a bit wary and awkward, but that feeling disappeared after a day of me taking him to play the game. "I believe you are my real mother." Fuxian hugged the phone, his eyes shining brightly. Who would have thought that the kid with dyed hair, a gangster killer, would be surrounded by his juniors on the street, and behind him was a useless person who could play Natalia with K10. I didn't bother to look up. "You're better than your father." Natalia in the game suddenly stood still as expected. It was already 1:11. Fuxian said, "You're definitely better than that old man." On the other side, he sneakily moved closer to me, hesitating for a long time. His intention was too obvious. I thought for a moment and continued, "When playing games, your father often uses his phone like a chain." "What? Because he doesn't get any kills?" Fuxian stared at the number 1 on the screen, indescribably happy. "Then he really is a chicken, especially when he heard me say that I was full of MVP gear and Fujing couldn't do anything and apologized for the whole match. He smiled even more carefree, until the criticized character stood behind me holding 2 glasses of milk. It was time to sleep. Fujing still remembered my habit of drinking milk before sleeping. He hesitantly placed the glass of milk in front of Fuxi, and his voice cold. "Drink it!" From the moment Fujing spoke, Fuxian, who was grinning, immediately retracted his expression, lowered his head to look at his phone, didn't look up, and didn't take the glass of milk. Fujing didn't pay any attention until he met my eyes. He stiffened slightly and finally said dryly, "You're so naive, you're really amazing." I still looked at him. He stopped, seemed a bit aggrieved, pursed his lips better than him. Fuxian still lowered his head to play the game attentively. I glanced, unconsciously rushing into the sacrifice, moreover. Waiting until Fujing left, Fuxian raised his head to look at me, his voice serious. "Can the purple sticky rice exorcise the evil spirits on his body?" I also thought seriously and replied, "Probably not enough. How about you try adding more dog blood?" Fuxian was stunned, then burst out laughing loudly, but while laughing his eyes were red. He tilted his head to look at me. "I thought Mum would scold me for not respecting Dad. Respect is a two-way street." I patted his head. "If you feel you are not respected, then a little harmless teasing is fine." What is being respected? It is when your thoughts and beliefs are recognized. Even if others think you are stupid, they will not interfere too much and will not force you to change. But it's mostly up to you to feel you have the right to judge whether you are respected or not. Fuxian was silent for a while, then picked up the glass of milk and drank it all, muttering, "That old man has never respected me," but his voice still lacked confidence. City, ititi. That day, Fujing still couldn't apologize to Fuxian. In the end, but he explained that he had no intention of marrying Chao An Ran. The rumor would be investigated. That day, Chao An Ran took the initiative to contact him, wanting to discuss Fuxian's studies. Therefore, Fujing cancelled an important meeting. At first, he didn't plan to say these things to Fuxian because he felt it was unnecessary. One did good deeds, but didn't take the initiative to explain the other did everything for his son, but didn't say anything. These two, father and son, were really the same in terms of being silent. So I stretched my back and laughed, "Really? Then let me scold Dad on your behalf." Fuxian didn't reply, but his eyes clearly lit up. He really liked seeing Fujing being scolded. When I went upstairs, I saw Fujing standing at the corner of the stairs with a look of disapproval on his face. "You're spoiling him." With the Fu family's strict family rules, the conversation between me and Fuxian was truly too indulgent. I tilted my head to look at him. So what? Fujing frowned. I smiled. Fuxian actually didn't like drinking milk. He paused, his eyes somewhat surprised. Was that the first time he poured milk for his child? He said he didn't respect him, but he still drank the whole glass of milk because that was the first time his father had changed. He was respecting him and trying to accept it. I remembered the pained expression when Fuxian held his nose and drank milk, a smile rising in his eyes. Fujing was silent for a long time this time, so long that I yawned and was about to go back to my room to sleep when he suddenly called me back. Before his parents taught him like that, he rarely hesitated, and no one had ever taught him before. I know. I tiptoed to rub his head like I did with Fuxian, but he was really too tall. I hesitantly withdrew my hand and saw Fujing calmly bend down slightly, hunching. I was stunned, then smiled even more brightly. I know everything, so I came back to teach you and your father. The person who needs to be saved is probably not just Fuxian. Fujing lowered his head. I couldn't see his expression clearly. I only felt him lightly rub my hand, then blushed slightly. Fujing had asked for a week off from school in place of Fuxian, and it wasn't until the end of the vacation that Fuxian realized that his biological mother shrinking back was not a good thing, because I had become his new desk mate. Fuxian took a deep breath, her voice trembling. Fairy sister, you intend to tutor me. I can also understand that Mum wants to relive her naive student days young. I curiously observed everything in the school saw male and female students walking side by side, just accidentally touching hands but shyly avoiding each other. I couldn't help but sigh. Youth is wonderful. But all that excitement disappeared after the first math period. Fo Tuan slept through the whole period as usual. I didn't wake him up, only when he woke up wanting to skip class out of habit, was grabbed by me with an expressionless face. It reacted slowly when it understood what was going on. Its fierce expression suddenly became flattering. I just wanted to go to the bathroom. Maybe I still don't understand you very well. I pulled Fuxian to sit down, my voice gentle. Mum is a very competitive person. Wherever she goes, she wants to be number one. Why? Fuxian stiffened. I smiled awkwardly, but after all, Mum had been away from school for too long. There were many things she couldn't remember clearly anymore. And why did your math teacher even have a local accent when teaching? I refused to admit that I didn't understand. Until Fuxian looked at me with a complicated gaze. Our math teacher's pronunciation was standard national first grade. I pretended not to hear, just quietly handed him my notebook. Fuxian glanced at it, casually read out the answer, then raised his head, his face in disbelief, and said very sincerely, "Why don't you go back to middle school? Perhaps he finally found a sense of victory somewhere." Fuxian's tone carried a hint of barely perceptible pride. I didn't say anything, I just quietly planted the politics and geography books and rolled them up again. Fuxian looked at the newly created treasure and his expression immediately changed. At first, Fuxian was forced by me to teach, but then he gradually started to sleep less during class. Even when the juniors came to find him, Fuxian just waved his hand. "Wait until I finish this homework." He started to proactively approach me, asking if I needed him to teach me, especially when he saw me expressionlessly looking at my wrong homework. And finally, he glared at me with hatred. When he asked that question, Fuxian's eyes sparkled, just like when I helped him win a game in the past. But this time, it was clearly more satisfying. He gradually stopped seeking existence, from aimlessly wandering around skipping school with his juniors. He had changed a lot. Su Xiaoqiao looked at Fuxian, who had just finished lecturing me, and then walked out with satisfaction and couldn't help but ask, "What did you do?" After the previous incident, Su Xiaoqiao began to gradually change her view of Fuxian. She said that thinking back, other than not listening to lectures and skipping school, often he hadn't done anything too outrageous, and had even eliminated harm to the people, although his actions were a bit extreme. I didn't object to Su Xiaoqiao taking the initiative to show goodwill to Fuxian. although in principle it was these goodwills that pushed her onto a path of no return. But this time I would keep her, as expected of a female protagonist who saves a story, with Su Xiaoqiao leading the way. The attitudes of many classmates towards Fuxian had also softened a bit, at least they weren't as cold as before. However, Fuxian still hadn't felt it yet. Because she thought she didn't need these people, she didn't care about their attitudes. I lowered my head to clean up the test and found a piece of candy underneath. The corners of my eyes were even more smiling. It's probably because people live to be needed. I need him, and he's happy that I need him. I have mild anemia, but I forgot to bring candy today. Fuxian had discovered it. Su Xiaoxiao nodded as if she understood something, but a hint of gloom quickly flashed in her eyes. Su Xiaoxiao and Fuxian had an argument. The reason was because Fuxian accidentally broke her glass doll. Su Xiaoxiao had always had a good temper. This was the first time she got angry, and Fuxian had been used to being pampered since she was young, treated like an egg. So the apology that was about to come out of her mouth turned into an unpleasant sentence. "It's just a broken toy. If you like it, I'll buy you 10, isn't 8, okay?" Especially when the whole class criticized her, Fuxian got even angrier and slammed the table. "What does it have to do with you guys? Get lost!" That fierce appearance made no one dare to say anything. Those days I was sick and asked for leave. When I returned, I found out that the two of them had been in a cold war for several days. Fuxian didn't have many friends. Su Xiaoxiao reluctantly counted as one, but now she doesn't even pay attention to him anymore. When the whole class saw his rude face, the fear that had faded came rushing back. He seemed to have fallen back into his previous state of isolation and alienation, but there was also a difference. I looked at Fuxian habitually poking the back of the person sitting in front of him to ask for a lesson, but when I saw the other person's fearful gaze, he immediately stiffened. Perhaps even he himself hadn't realized that he had started to care about other people's views. But I didn't mention it, nor did I ask about the matter between him and Su Xiaoxiao until Fuzier couldn't hold it in anymore. "Why didn't you scold me? What did you scold me for?" They all said I was wrong. Fuxian said that sentence very calmly. "So do you think you did something wrong?" I asked again. Fuxian was silent for a long time, and after a while he opened his mouth. "That doll has a chipped corner. I saw that Su Xiaoxiao was very fond of that doll before, and every time he took it out he was very careful. She cried easily, and when she saw it broken she would definitely cry again. I planned to find an identical one and secretly exchange it, but no one expected that when she was holding the doll, someone else would hit it hard. She couldn't hold it back and was caught by Su Xiaoxiao, who turned around." When he said these words, Fuxian's voice was soft, carrying a bit of grievance. I asked, "Have you said these words to Su Xiaoxiao?" Fuxian didn't answer, just like his father. He even wanted to refute, but I teased him to death. The first time I met her, my mother told me to learn to speak up. People are not born with mouths just to eat. The things you keep hidden in your heart and think are good for others often hurt both of you. If you don't say it, how will others know? Wait until the misunderstanding is formed before explaining the wound has already formed. Fuxian, you are not mute, you can speak. Fuxian pursed her lips and looked at the notebook on the table without saying anything. That was the notebook that Su Xiaoxiao had lent her. After knowing that she wanted to study properly, she enthusiastically gave her the notebook. I patted Fuxian's head. "It's not difficult to lower your head." "Look at you lowering your head now." "Well," Fuxian snorted lightly and finally said awkwardly, "I will go explain clearly to Su Xiaoxiao." But Su Xiaoxiao had asked for leave, saying that there was something at home. Fuxian was anxious to explain clearly, so he asked the teacher for her home address and went to find her. I didn't go with her. The system couldn't help it. She knew clearly. I will teach him how to open his mouth, how to respect others, how to find a goal to work hard, how to become stronger. I can teach him everything I know, I interrupted the system and smiled. But I won't protect it forever. I can help it avoid danger this time. What about next time? What if there are dangers that neither I nor it knows about? What I've wanted to change from the beginning is not just the ending. Hope has never been something given by others. Salvation from others is only temporary. Only self-salvation can truly be saved. The system didn't say anything more. Su Xiao fell down the stairs and was taken to the hospital in a coma. Her stepfather, Tran Min, specifically named Fu Xian as the one who did it. He said that day Fu Xian stormed into the house in anger and dragged Su Xiao away without saying a word. He tried to stop him but was beaten up by Fu Xian. Tran Min was a high school teacher who was highly praised by parents, and the neighbors also said that he treated his stepdaughter Su Xiao very well. As for Fu Xian, he was a thug and the kind of rich kid who relied on his power to do whatever he wanted. Furthermore, the wound on Chen Ming's face could not be faked. When the police arrived, Fu Xian was like a little lion still wanting to attack Chen Ming again, but was stopped. Fu Xian was taken to the police station for education. Fu Jing was still on a business trip abroad, so his lawyer took me to pick him up. When he saw me, Fu Xian's eyes lit up, but he quickly turned away. The police said he refused to say anything more, only affirming that he did not push Su Xiao. The hospital said that her injury was actually not serious. It was just that she was still unconscious for some reason. The parents were also willing to reconcile. So what did Miss Wen mean? I tilted my head to look at Fu Xian. He did not want to look at me, but I slapped him hard on the head. Fu Xian held his head and cried out in pain. Only then did I realize that the rims of his eyes were red, looking like he had just cried. Fu Xian. I looked straight into his eyes and asked seriously, Mom will only ask you one question. Did you do this? No. Raise your voice. Fu Xian gritted her teeth and said, I didn't do it. Very good. I nodded and said to the lawyer, we won't reconcile. I believe him, and I also believe he didn't lie to me. Reconciliation means admitting guilt, and Fu Xian didn't do it. He must leave here clean. Fu Xian raised his head in surprise as if he wanted to say something, but tears fell in large drops. It raised its hand to wipe, wiping more and more. This little boy who used to scream like a little lion was now crying pitifully. I sighed, hugged Fu Xian, and thought to myself I must find time to cut his wild horse killer hair. The smell of hairspray really ruined the atmosphere, but I beat that beast. After crying for a while, Fu Xian spoke hoarsely, as if he suddenly realized his impulsive actions. He was a little worried. Is this serious? Hesitating for a moment, he looked at me hesitantly. I didn't mean it. I've told Fu Xian countless times before that violence doesn't solve problems, and even gave many examples. The weekend entertainment program at home is also the legal section that the whole family watches together. I feel comforted that at least he still remembers what I said. If I do it again, will he still beat me? Fu Xian didn't need to think the best way to beat him was to beat him to death before the police arrived, gritting his teeth trying to act fierce, but in fact Fu Xian had held back. In the original, he beat Chen Ming to the point of paralysis. That day, the system even asked me what if Fu Xian still followed the original plot. If you do something wrong, you must be punished. I laughed, but I would stay by his side. The most important thing was that I believed in my son. I was very happy that Fu Xian had changed the direction of the ending himself, but now I deliberately kept a straight face and didn't say anything. Fu Xian was a little panicked, unconsciously pulling my sleeve, stammering, but I have my reasons. I was amused by that appearance. Although violence couldn't solve the problem, it could vent anger. I patted his head, but after venting anger, I had to think of a way to solve the problem. Fu Xian, I am your mother. You can always trust me, even though I said that Fu Xian hesitated for a moment and still shook his head. You can't say it. I respect his decision. The next day, rumors spread throughout the school, and the one who pushed the matter to a climax was the recording submitted by Zhang Shui. In the recording, Fu Xian's fierce voice was clearly heard. "I will definitely make that little girl Su Xiaoxiao die," Zhang Shuqi cried and said, "That day Xiaoxiao told me that she was a bit worried that Fu Xian would get angry, but I didn't expect him to be so heartless. Xiaoxiao has always been good to him. That day, it was clearly Fu Xian's fault, it was my fault. If I had bravely stood up earlier, Xiaoxiao might have been fine." So many people believed that this was Fu Xian's act of revenge. The initial indifference turned into hatred and resentment. Although some people spoke up to defend her, they were quickly extinguished. Because there was no evidence to prove Fu Xian's innocence, and the only person who knew the truth, Su Xiaoxiao, was still in a coma. Fu Xian still refused to say anything, not long after he was cheated by Yu Anan in the exam. In the recent midterm exam, Fu Xian ranked 10th in the class. I understand the male student's mentality of wanting to show off in front of his girlfriend. Teacher Chao Anran frowned and said to Fu Jing, "But you can't." She didn't finish speaking, but her meaning was very clear. Chao Anran thought that Fu Jing would be like before, immediately lecturing her son so that she could comfort him, but this time Fu Jing only looked at her coldly. Did Teacher Chao have any evidence for what she said? Chao Anran was stunned, then quickly smiled to cover up her embarrassment. Even though it was speculation, Fu Xian didn't study in such a short time before. Since it was speculation, then what did Teacher Chao rely on to conclude that the boy definitely cheated? Chao Anran's smile was completely forced, especially when Fu Jing turned to ask his son, "Did you cheat?" His voice was still as cold as ever, but this time there was a hint of defense. In the same scene, Fu Xian was stunned for a second and then replied as usual, "You're not good." Fu Jing nodded, looking at Chao Anran coldly. "As a teacher, you arbitrarily slandered a student without any evidence, Teacher Chao. I ask you to apologize to my son in front of the whole class. This is the first time Fu Jing has called Fu Xian my son in front of everyone." Fu Xian immediately stiffened, his face flushed red. His head raised high, combined with his colorfully dyed hair, he looked like a rooster that had just won. I couldn't help but laugh at that image and turned around to leave. If his father was like that, then I had to try harder. Not long after, many of Fu Xian's classmates came to the office to prove that he hadn't cheated. Some of them had asked for homework or come to listen. His logical thinking was good. Although his foundation was weak, when he studied hard, he improved quickly. At first, some people were afraid to ask questions, but seeing her angry enough to bang her head on the table, she still patiently explained it to me. The mother's slow-wittedness gradually disappeared. Even though she said people were stupid, Fu Xian had never refused anyone. There were also people close to Su Xiaoxiao who said that Xiaoxiao had once told a story about Fu Xian helping a female student take revenge. Actually, we didn't believe the class president's words. They said that after that day, Xiaoxiao had cut off all ties with her. Thanks to this group of people, when Fu Xian was scolded, they still spoke up to defend her, even though they were still a little afraid of her. Through the crowd, I saw Fu Xian standing stiffly in place. She seemed flustered, her eyes were red, and she took advantage of the moment when no one was paying attention to lower her head. Enough Su air. The situation was completely reversed the day Su Xiaoxiao woke up. The first thing she did when she woke up was to report to the police to accuse Chen Ming of harassing her. In the original plot, there was also a plot in which Fu Xian protected Su Xiaoxiao, but at that time she didn't get into trouble. She was grateful to Fu Xian and also felt guilty because she almost caused trouble because of her, so she was even better to her. That made Fu Xian even more possessive of her. The system said that the special plot was predetermined and couldn't be changed, so I could only try to adjust the direction. Fortunately, I succeeded. The truth was completely clear. That day, Fu Xian planned to go find Su Xiaoxiao to explain, but coincidentally saw Chen Ming messing with her. No one expected that the gentle and exemplary teacher Chen would be a beast towards his own daughter. Fu Xian wanted to take her away, but was stopped by Chen Ming. While being tied up, Su Xiaoxiao fell down the stairs. Fu Xian panicked and called an ambulance, but unexpectedly Chen Ming called the police first, framing her. With Su Xiaoxiao's testimony, Chen Ming was arrested. He was confident that Su Xiaoxiao wouldn't dare to say a word. When she was caught, Tran Min was attacking Trong Tuet. Because of being humiliated by Fo Tu An and being shunned by Tu Tiu Tu, Trong Tuet hated and joined forces with Tran Min, but she did not expect that harming others would harm herself. When she was rescued, Trong Tuet was about to collapse. No one pitied her. As for Q An Yen, who had falsely accused Fo Tu An of cheating but refused to apologize, she was also punished by the Department of Education. Later, someone accused her of deliberately seducing parents and spreading negative comments among the student group. Q An Yen could not continue to stay in school. Committing a crime would have retribution. On the day the penalty notice was issued, I brought a copy of the notice to find Fo Tu An. Wherever he went recently, he received both apologetic and admiring looks. Fo Tu An felt annoyed, so he decided to find a quiet place to be alone. I found him while sitting watching people playing soccer on the field. Su Xiaoxiao asked her mother to convey her apologies to her. I sat down beside her, tilted my head to look at her. So why did she fall down the stairs that day? Fu Xian turned her head to look at the soccer field. I thought she wouldn't answer, but unexpectedly she said softly, "That day she actually intended to drag Chen Ming down to die with her." I was stunned, not expecting to receive such an answer, then suddenly remembered that times Su Xiaoxiao seemed very unstable. That glass doll was a gift from Su Xiaoxiao's father. I thought the broken corner was also because Chen Ming broke it when he got drunk that day. At that time, I planned to take Su Xiaoxiao and run away, but Chen Ming threatened to report me for cornering her and said that he took this opportunity to get a bunch of money from his father. I could see that Su Xiaoxiao was really desperate at that time. She cried and apologized to me, saying that she had implicated me. Fu Xian kept muttering like a voice box. That kid said he didn't dare tell the police about it. He was afraid that if he took the initiative to expose everything, Su Xiaoxiao wouldn't be able to bear the shock when she woke up. Such a young girl was already very scared and desperate, and she also had to face the so-called victim guilt theory. If she woke up and heard malicious words, Fu Xian scratched his head. He wanted to wait for Su Xiaoxiao to wake up and let her decide for herself. What if Su Xiaoxiao woke up and didn't want to expose the truth? I asked him. If she had chosen to remain silent, no one would have known what had happened that day. That unjust accusation would forever be attached to Fu Xian. She was stunned and then grinned. I didn't think that much. After all, boys can definitely endure better than girls. Mom used to praise me as a hero, right? You know, being a hero is actually quite fun. As she said that, Fu Xian's eyes sparkled. She was ready to take the blame for someone else. She still remembered the first time we met. I used to praise her as a hero. I suddenly felt a stinging sensation in my nose, reached out and pinched his cheek hard, almost gritting my teeth as I said, "You idiot! Why did I have such a stupid son? What do parents exist for? To show off? Do you know that day my people were always following you and your father had already collected enough evidence? If you just open your mouth, once we can solve everything for you." How many times have I told you the mouth is for talking, not for thinking? If there is a next time, I'm just afraid that if I say it, I won't be able to bear it when others scold me. Fu Xian suddenly interrupted me. He lowered his head, his voice choked. "I'm really not as strong as you think. Just a small gap, the resentment will flood out like a virtual tide and cannot be stopped." So Fu Xian chose to block it from the beginning. That thought was naive, childish, stupid, but also adorable and worthy of understanding. "But why do you have to be so strong?" I asked. "Have you ever thought about why I came back again?" Fu Xian was stunned because she saw her precious son suffer so much injustice in this life. You are clearly a kind and understanding child. Why do you have to suffer so much? The pain forced upon him made me both angry and heartbroken. No one is born to be a villain. I blinked, trying to hold back my tears, then continued. So I came back to be your support. If you have to be so strong, then is a support like me useless? Fu Xian quietly came back to her senses, lowered her head and said quietly, "What if I am not as good as you thought? What? What if the first time I met you, you were not teaching that sneaky cameraman a lesson, but were simply bullying others?" Fu Xian's voice trembled. Mum would hit me, scold me. I thought for a moment and replied, even getting angry to the point of saying harsh words. "How could I have a son like you?" I saw Fu Xian's hand on my knee clench tightly. He was worried. I smiled slowly and seriously with each word. "But Mum will never abandon you. Mum is very happy because you are better than what Mum imagined." That hand slowly loosened. Fu Xian opened his mouth. His voice pushed up to his nose. "And Mum is just like what you imagined. Once I had to have surgery under deep anesthesia, and I didn't wake up. I dreamed that I came to visit Mum. Mum asked why I came here. I said, because I missed Mum." Fu Xian laughed through tears. "Actually, during that time, I kept causing trouble. My grandparents didn't like me either. No, actually, no one liked me. I thought Mum was the same, would scold me, force me to be a good kid, but Mum just told me to go home and eat well." My eyes gradually blurred. I also laughed. "So, did you listen to Mum in your dream?" "Yes," Fu Xian sniffed, pretending to be proud. "That day when I woke up, I ate several bowls of rice in a row." Then, in a low, embarrassed voice, "Mum, I really miss you." This is the first time Fu Xian has said that to me, making me want to hug him and cry loudly. But that would be too embarrassing. I pretended to comfortably throw the letter in my hand to him. Then this time, Mum come back and bring me a gift. It was a letter denouncing Chao An Ran to the Department of Education. Except for Zhang Shui, all the other students signed it, including Su Xiaoxiao. Fu Xian looked at me blankly, and after a long while he finally said, "I don't need them to prove it." But the corners of his lips curled up, his eyes still sparkling. I laughed. "Then maybe I need a second gift." "What is it?" I handed the still-connected phone to Fu Xian. He seemed to have guessed something, his face slightly tensed. Until a very clear apology rang out on the other end of the line. Fu Xian's hand stiffened. He turned to look at me, his mouth open but unable to say anything. "Focus on listening," I mouthed at him. Fu Xian pursed his lips, his expression tense and serious, but the next words did not come from the phone. "Dad thinks maybe I should tell you directly." A familiar voice rang out behind him, accompanied by a barely detectable gasp. Fu Xian immediately turned his head, not daring to believe it. The CEO, who had always been cold for the first time, facing his son's gaze, felt a little embarrassed. "You unconsciously looked at me. I intentionally turned my head away." Fu Jing had no choice but to sigh, his expression serious, like Fu Xian's. The words sounded like he was reading a year-end summary report, causing Fu Xian to frown. Perhaps he himself felt that he had said something bad. Fu Jing pursed his lips, then very quickly the corners of his eyes lit up with a clear smile. He said, "Dad is proud of you and will always love you." The words were very touching, but Fu Xian, when facing his father, seemed to lack emotional nerves. He immediately broke free from the emotional atmosphere and turned his head to seriously ask me, "Mom, now sticky rice and black dog blood are not enough to exercise him right." Fu Jing's face darkened, and I also laughed out loud. I thought this was enough. On Fu Xian's graduation day, Fu Jing, representing the parents of the excellent students, gave a speech. Fu Xian secretly recorded it, then ran away and got a little angry with me. The old man looked young but spoke and acted like an old man. If it weren't for his face, which was still passable, the people below would have fallen asleep. "Hey, Mum, you really don't plan on finding me a stepfather. I think you've been reborn." Why don't you try getting to know someone else? There are many wildflowers and pine trees out there. After the relationship between father and son was resolved, it developed in another extreme direction. I replied, Dad and son have been working out very hard lately, so I haven't gotten bored yet. I suddenly remembered the last time when Fu Jing was drunk and hugged me, his face full of grievance. I was only 2 years older than you, but now I'm almost 20 years older. What should I do? It was so hard to coax him. But he kept tossing and turning, unable to sleep, and finally got up and insisted on going to the gym. That scene made me laugh. At that moment, the system suddenly appeared after a long absence. The ending had changed. Congratulations on completing the mission. I was stunned. Are you leaving? I will leave, but don't worry, your reward is to be able to continue staying in this world. My appearance gradually returned to its original appearance. Perhaps this was also a reward. I suddenly laughed. Then before you leave, can you give me a hug? After a moment of silence, just when I thought the system had disappeared, a blurry figure suddenly appeared in front of me. He lowered his head as if he was afraid to meet my gaze. It wasn't until I exclaimed, "So this is what you'll look like in the future." Mum thought he would at least be a little more mature, but he still looked very young. That blurry figure immediately stiffened, raising his head to look at me in surprise. Mum, there's no mother who doesn't recognize her son. I spread my arms to hug the grown-up Fu Xian, or more precisely, the boy who was destined to go down the path of destruction in the original work, smiling and scolding lovingly. You brat, I want to give you a hug. Even though that figure couldn't touch anything, I could clearly feel the child's once cold body gradually warming up. The words of "Thank you, Mum." And then "I love you, Mum." Perhaps because he was not used to smiling when he tried to raise his lips, his face looked a bit awkward. I thought that was enough, just knowing that in another world my son was also trying to save himself. That was enough. I hugged him tightly, whispering sincerely, "Mum is proud of you and will love you forever." Thank you for listening to the story at Ken Stories. I hope you have relaxing and fun moments. Don't forget to give me a like and subscribe so I have more motivation to make more videos.